Hey guys, gotten a couple requests to explain what I mean when I talk about edges not being centered. Um, I guess that is kind of confusing. It doesn't make sense when you think about it unless you can picture it in your head or have an illustration. It is kind of difficult to understand what that would actually mean. So I drew a little diagram. I'm not an artist, and I also am going to show you a knife that is pretty badly off center. Pretty much the deal is you want an edge to be, say this is your primary grind going down, your edge is going to be out here. This is your primary grind going down. You want the edge to be a perfect, like you cut the top half of a triangle off. You want it to be like this. When an edge isn't centered, it's off to one side like that. And no matter how sharp that knife is, it's always going to affect cutting performance because it's not dead center of the grind. You're always going to have some torque issues and things like that. So here's a little diagram to explain what I'm talking about. And this is, again, not very skillfully drawn. This is an off-center edge. As you can see, the primary grinds come down, and you have one side that is a steeper angle than the other side. So it's like this, pretty much. And this means the edge is off center. And no matter how sharp you get that edge, it's always going to be off center unless you correct it. And it's going to affect cutting performance. This is illustrative of a perfectly centered edge, which is directly in line with the blade, directly in line with your cutting force, and this is going to produce the highest level of performance as opposed to something like this. Now what that looks like on a knife is this. As you can see, this is one clean bevel all the way through this knife, right? One clean bevel. Well, this knife has a pretty badly off-center edge, and this side is this side that you're looking at right now would be this far side of this bevel right here. So as you can see, that's what that looks like. Now we flip this knife over, and if you look closely, you can see where there's actually two different grinds on this knife. It's pretty centered here. As you can see, we have one bevel. But as we go further to the tip, you see my bevel, which is a 100% correct held bevel. This is one angle. It starts trailing off to the very edge of the blade right here. As you can see, I wish my camera was a little bit better and zoomed a little bit further, but it doesn't. As you can see, there's still some of the factory grind lines left up here. There you can see them right there glinting in the light. Now, the part that's glinting now is my bevel. What this is an off-center edge. It starts to trail off right about here, and all the rest of this is off-center. That's why you see these factory grind lines left on this edge. The other side is in line. That's out of line. Alright, that's what it looks like. Let me grab another knife that demonstrates this. This Spyderco Tenacious is very off-center. As you can see, nice thin bevel. That's probably 40 degrees per side. Well, 38, 36. Flip it over and you see how much wider that bevel is. You see how much thicker it is? That's because the bevel is off-center. It is not in line with the spine of the knife. As you can see, big, thick bevel, thin bevel. Thick, thin. That is an off-center edge. And that's going to affect cutting performance. So we correct this by sharpening more on the side that is smaller. It's going to be the more obtuse angle. So if the angle of this knife, say you're looking at it this way, this is going to be a very obtuse angle. Like this is going to be very obtuse, and this is going to be very shallow, something akin to that. And that's what you're seeing here. Alright, so the way we correct this is by sharpening. Let me grab a pen. Should have prepared for this. How we're going to correct this is by sharpening more on this side that is obtuse. So if our edge is off center, this is exactly what our tenacious looks like if you were to take a cross section of it. This side right here needs to be sharpened more than this side. So what we're going to need to do is sharpen this side. That's it hitting the stone. We're going to need to sharpen this side till it forms a big burr. And I know that's terribly exaggerated, but there's our burr. We need to form a bigger burr on the more obtuse side each time we sharpen than we do the shallow side. It would be better if you could actually not even form a burr on the shallow side. What we're doing when we're forming a burr right here is we're slowly laying that bevel back, and it's eventually going to be in line. So pretty much you're sharpening more aggressively on the side that's at a line to push it back to center like this. So that's pretty much it. See how this is in line? You're going to form the same amount of work on these two sides, and that's going to keep it in line. But say you have an edge like this that's at a line, you're going to need to sharpen more on this side than you are on that side. The bigger burr you form, the bigger of a burr you form on this side, the more you are actually starting to line that edge up with the other. And I know that's a terrible drawing, but that's how you do it. If you were to form a bigger burr on the shallow side, you will just continue to push that edge over that way. So it's not a huge deal, honestly. But if you're looking for maximum performance, you want a centered edge, and that is not something you want to do all at once. You just want to know, okay, well, this knife has an off-center edge, so each time I sharpen, I need to form a bigger burr on this side, which by what I mean by saying form a bigger burr on this side is sharpen on this side, and you're actually going to be forming the burr on the other side. Of course, go watch my video on the burr, and that'll make more sense. But each time you sharpen, you're trying to correct this by sharpening more on the more obtuse side and less on the shallow side. And that will eventually, after 5 or 6 sharpenings, have your edge perfectly in line. So don't feel like if your edge is out of line that your knife is junk, because it's not. 90%, I would say possibly more than that, and 95, 96% of edges that come from the factory are off-center to a degree. Now, these two that I showed you are some of the worst that I've ever seen, honestly, and they still cut just fine. But if you were to take these knives with perfectly centered edges and these with off-center edges, the one with a centered edge is going to cut that much better. So that's why it's important. I hope this answers your questions, guys. If not, then I'll always make another video and answer any questions that you may have had that I didn't get to. Anybody that wants to make requests, I actually like requests like this because it gives me something to talk about, and I feel like I can really explain it to people when they have specific questions. So thanks to the guys who prompted me to do this, and I hope it helps you, and let me know if there's anything else. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.